Let me just like contain my excitement here for a sec.
Oh, all good. No,
Okay.
I'm excited. I'm ready, I think.
All right. Hey everyone, welcome to the first official episode of the Bone Diaries. We are your hosts. I am Jamie,
And I am Rachel.
and let's get this audio party started.
Yeah, let's rock your eardrums.
Let's rock your eardrums.
I had to say something lame.
This is a podcast for all things creepy, and try to throw a little bit of comedy in there when we can.
Mm-hmm.
I'm currently 3 ciders deep, so I'm thinking the comedy will come naturally.
Yes, I mean, we're like, I guess we chose to go with like a comedy podcast because we just like can't help our goofiness. So like no matter what category we're gonna choose, it's just kind of gonna have to lean towards comedy. So.
No matter what we pick, it always comes back to comedy.
We're just a couple of goofs talking about true crime and I guess ghost stories, UFOs, dating, and other
Don't forget
terrifying.
The Sasquatch.
Yeah, and Sasquatch, yes. Sasquatch, we'll get to him.
Key to this podcast. I guess we should start maybe by saying a little bit about ourselves. Rach, you want to tell our audience of 0
my whole spiel of my life from birth? Actually, yeah, that's actually a good place to start, from birth. Like no joke, because that's when we became friends. Yeah, because and anyways, birth is a good place to start because that's when we became friends.
Yeah, that's true.
So I guess we could start by just talking about how we became friends. So our dads work together and they've known each other for a long time. I guess since like maybe late 80s or something. And so yeah, they're good friends. And then Jamie, you're like a year and a half older than me, I believe. And so basically when I was born, I think you came just visit me in the hospital, probably. You little 1.5-year-old.
Sure did.
I'm sure you did. And then from then on, we just decided, hey, we're friends.
I walked into that hospital room. I locked eyes with her barely open eyes, and I went, "You're my friend."
And I was like, "Okay."
It was history.
And then that's the first day of the end of the world.
Yeah. So we've been friends for like 24 years, hey?
Yeah, 24 years. Yeah.
Goddamn.
Yep. And so that's why we're friends. It just happened. It was meant to be. It was in the cosmos. And I guess to say a little something about myself. 24 years old, and we're actually both from the Okanagan, and I moved over here when I was like 9 to Victoria and Vancouver Island. And I like all things spooky. And and I guess like as Jamie, of course, like I love the 80s, I love the goth stuff, and I like all the spookiness around that. So that's basically most of my interests. And then also just like creative stuff as well. So I love art and music and la-di-da. And and I zap people with lasers for a living. And the other day, this one girl,
she yelled, badass.
"Oh yeah." Oh my gosh, I feel like badass putting people in pain and they're paying us for it. Awesome. But the other day I actually zapped this one girl, like I was doing Brazilian on her, and she yelled "fuck" really loudly, and it was like the last zap. And so that was the first time I got somebody to swear like that, so that was great.
That was like cymbals crashing at the end of a symphony, just
yes, what we were all waiting for. So pain no gain. And so that's pretty much everything, I guess, about me when we get down to it. And how about you, Jamie? Tell us a little something about your beautiful self.
I am 25 years old. I was born and raised here in the Okanagan. I have a cat named Spooks, and I love cheese. So that's pretty much.
That's great. That's beautiful. I mean, like, if you don't like cheese, shame on you. If you just can't have cheese, like for dietary reasons. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you have to go through
You're
life.
so much nicer than I am. I'm like, if you don't like cheese, turn this fucking podcast off right now.
Yeah, no, all about the lactose in this house.
We don't have a lack of lactose over here on our end. Okay.
And also we decided for you guys to have a little guessing game, and who knows, you might win a little something if you can guess our zodiac
Ooh.
signs. I'll
If you
be
know us,
nice.
it doesn't count.
Yeah, if you know us, shut up. You're not allowed. You're not allowed. You're excluded from
Don't
this.
spoil it.
No. But yeah, no, you can guess our signs. I'll be more lenient and say you can guess one of my one main three signs. Just because I think that's a bit more fair. Yeah.
Yeah,
See
our
if we can-
astrological signs, people. I said
Mhm.
signs.
Signs.
Okay, so why did we start this podcast? That's a good question. Well, I remember, like, I think it was about a month or so ago. Okay, I've wanted to do a podcast for a very long time, and I couldn't really figure out, where to go with it, who I wanted to have on it. I didn't want to host it by myself because I just think that would have been way too hard. So I asked Rachel one day, and Rachel, how did you respond when I asked you?
I'm pretty sure it was
wanted to
just
start-
like, fuck yeah. And then I was like totally into
Yeah.
it, like no questions asked. Because like you were telling like me and then also my sister to like, you guys should start a podcast. And like I was really down for that. But unfortunately, like I don't think she was really ready for it. And then like, yeah, how come it didn't dawn on us like right away? It's like, hey, we should start a podcast.
Yeah, it took us a
Yeah.
long ass time to kind of figure that out and be like, wait a minute. Whoa, we both like to talk. Whoa, we
Yeah.
both have the same interest. Whoa.
Oh, yeah, and creativity on top of that. Yes. I
Yeah,
mean,
it-
like
It
I guess you
just
were
came so naturally.
Oh, totally. And like, I guess you were a drama kid or like theater kid in school, right? So like, I love that. That's in my blood. But you know what? Like, I was like not very secure in high school and stuff, so I didn't join the drama and the theater and stuff. Although I like really wanted to.
That's
But
fair.
like,
High school was a time.
yeah, high school was quite the time. It was more of survival than of interest.
Survival mode.
So,
Yeah, I feel that.
but hey, we're here now, and we're making our dreams come true.
We're doing it.
Hmm.
It's so exciting. Okay, so how did we get into all things creepy?
Ooh.
Rach, do you want to kind of take that away?
Sure. There are many layers to this question, but I'll try to keep it simple. So I've just always been drawn to it. I've always been drawn to the unknown, and the unknown, although it may not seem creepy at times, people still treat it like it's creepy, even when it comes to non-creepy things. For example, death. It's a natural thing, but it's it's an unknown of like what's on the other side, right? So therefore
Right.
that's creepy, but I find that fascinating. So that's one example. I guess also too, when it comes to like I had to deal with quite a bit of like anxiety too, growing up. And just feeling prepared, I think, is something that I felt like I was gaining when listening to all these horrible crimes and stories and stuff. So yeah, just like feeling prepared and just feeling like I was aware and just I just was afraid of like being too naive for this world, because this world, of course, as we all know, is like very fucked up. So at the same time, I think I'm just trying to enjoy it, enjoy what I can from it without being sounding like a real like sadistic about it. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
fair.
not creating the crimes, I'm just reviewing them. Like,
We have no official part in these crimes.
yes, yeah, we do not partake, no. So yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up for me. What about you, Jamie? What got you into all this spooky stuff?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, like I suffer from anxiety, and definitely hearing stories of true crime or, horrible situations like that, I think it does help me mentally prepare in a sense. Like I learn so much from it, from different stories, and it's kind of a way to mentally prepare myself as well if anything were to ever happen to me, God forbid not. But yeah, that's definitely, I share that with you. But I remember like I was so young at the time, and my mom had a magazine out on the coffee table one day, and I remember walking, in the like walking, playing, frolicking, whatever, in the family room, and I looked down and there were two I think teenage girls on the cover of it, and I didn't really understand what the title was about, and I asked my mom, and it was a story about two girls who had been kidnapped and like brutally raped, but they both survived and were able
Oh my
to
gosh.
escape. And that for me was, I think, the first moment I kind of heard anything like in that sort of realm.
Mhm.
And I was hooked instantly, like so drawn into like this horrible story, and just the
Mhm.
fact that they had survived was so incredible. I mean, it's kind of a weird magazine to have in like a family room where your where your kids are playing, but
Right.
like, hey, I get it, you
Mhm.
know. Um,
Totally.
so yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of the first thing that like piqued my interest in this kind of
Cool.
area.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that actually just brought back like one of my first memories as well. I'm surprised it didn't come up before. But yeah, it happened too when I was younger, maybe not a toddler, I don't know, but like, old enough to kind of like finally grasp what death was. And so I think it
Right.
must have been when I was around like 6 or 7. And it was in Kelowna where there was like this memorial center or something for this girl. And perhaps we'll even cover this story at one point later. No, I think that would be a good one. But yeah, no, I just noticed it and it just like looked really eerie and sad. And I think I asked my dad or my mom, I'm like, oh, like what happened to her? And they're like, she got killed. Somebody kidnapped her and dumped her body here. And I'm like, oh shit, like people do that? And
Wow.
like, of course, as a child, like if you're more chemically functioning in the brain, you'd be like, oh, that's messed up. People can do that. you know like yeah, I never hurt any animals as a kid, so that's a good sign.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, so I was like, oh, that's really messed up. And I think that's kind of where it started too, because like the big question is always why, and really why is never really the right question when it comes to these kinds of things. Like it's so much more complex than that. you know
Yeah, there's just so much to it, and most of the time people who do commit these crimes can't ever give like a straight answer.
Oh no. Yeah, it's like it's not logical at all. That's
No.
like the main point, really. Like
Yeah.
there's no logic behind it. It's just basically evil and insanity and like whatever other crazy factors are involved.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, I guess, do you want to start with the story time?
Yeah, let's start with the story time. Let's start with your story.
Okay, so today I'm going to be reading the story of the Black Widow trial. The resources that I have for this, one great video that I watched off of YouTube was from an account called Briefcase, and it was read by someone called The Final Wizard, so thank you for that. Other sources, Wikipedia, Murderpedia, and EvelynDick.com all have great information. So if you want to learn more, there's tons of books, movies, songs, those websites, they're all great for information. So we're going to start with the background today. Evelyn Dick was born on October 13th, 1920. She was born in Beamsville, Ontario, to Scottish immigrants, Donald and Alexandra McLean. Oh yeah, this is a Canadian story. Woo woo!
hmm
A year after Evelyn was born, her family moved to Hamilton, Ontario, as her father then had the opportunity to work as a conductor on the Hamilton Street Railway. It is said that Evelyn did not have a particularly happy childhood. Her parents fought all the time, and her father was actually an alcoholic. And often, while he was drinking, he would sexually abuse Evelyn. This started when she was quite young. Her mom, Alexandra, was seemingly obsessed with constantly trying to increase the family's social standard, and Alexandra was also known to have a bad temper and to be very intrusive. As Evelyn was her parents' only child, they were very protective of her. They often didn't like that she would go and play with the other kids in the neighborhood, and they only wanted her to be associated with the children from the town's high society families, even though they didn't really live in a particularly well-to-do area of town. Since Evelyn's father, Donald, was a train conductor, he didn't make a very hefty income. Donald would later attain an office position that would give him access to company revenues. Financially, her parents couldn't afford to send her to the cream of the crop type of schools. So, with that being said, it was hard for Evelyn to make friends with the types of children that her mother wanted her to meet, those of high status. However, neighbors became shocked to find that one day Evelyn was suddenly transferred from state school, which is pretty much like public school, to Loretta Academy, which was a very prestigious school. Talk spread throughout the town, while neighbors wondered how Evelyn's parents could afford the expensive school fees and tuition. Others would often wonder how the family kept a luxurious lifestyle only on a conductor's salary. Rumors had started to circulate that Donald was actually stealing money from his employer, the Hamilton Street Railway. As Evelyn became older, she became a very attractive young woman and was never short of male attention. Her mother believed that Evelyn's looks were what would eventually help her to one day marry a man from a wealthy family. Evelyn would often be spotted wearing expensive jewels and furs that were considered to be more than proper. So, like, she would often be dressed in, like, super fine clothes, dressed to the nines wherever she went, which is kind of like, a little bit extreme, because if I'm going to go to the grocery store, I'm not going to be wearing an evening gown. But this chick, she loved the finer things, dressed up whenever she could. Evelyn was found frequently attending parties as she became older and found herself in the social circle that her mother had always wanted her to be involved in. Yet, she was never fully accepted as one of their own in high society. In fact, Evelyn would often spend a lot of her time with men who were much older than her, which, as a young girl, that's might be a little bit problematic.
Mm-hmm.
During the year 1941, Evelyn had become pregnant with her first child. In July 1942, she gave birth to her brand new baby girl named Heather. It would be soon discovered that Heather had both intellectual and developmental disabilities. Because Evelyn had given birth out of wedlock, locals had made this news the talk of the town. In order to put a halt to these rumors, Evelyn claimed that she was actually married to a military man who was stationed overseas. Shortly after Heather was born, Evelyn wanted to continue to maintain an active social life, so her mother, Alexandra, would often look after Heather while Evelyn was out of town. Come 1944, Evelyn had become pregnant for a second time. She gave birth in September to a baby boy who she named Peter. Yet oddly enough, when she returned home from the hospital, Peter was not with her. When friends and neighbors asked her about this, she stated that she had made the difficult decision to give up the baby for adoption, as with her circumstances, it would be difficult for her to raise two children. A while later, Evelyn's parents had finally decided to separate after years of arguing with one another. Evelyn had then decided that she didn't want to continue living in the family home with her father. No shit, he was abusing her.
Yeah, no, bye.
So, yeah, later days, Dad. So, along with her daughter Heather and her mother Alexandra, the three of them moved into an apartment together. So, in the summer of 1945, Evelyn met a man named John Dick. John was a handsome man who was 15 years older than Evelyn. He had come to Canada with his parents in 1924 from Russia, and John had moved to Hamilton in 1943 after finding work as a streetcar driver. Evelyn and John met when she and her daughter went to her father's work to visit him one day. Heather thought John was kind, as he often brought her and her mom Evelyn gifts. Evelyn thought that John seemed to be a nice guy, and they started to develop a cozier relationship. She mentioned to him that she was a widow and that her husband had been killed in World War II. John was completely infatuated with Evelyn. Only a couple weeks after the two had met, Evelyn had announced to her family that she and John were engaged to be married. She was excited about the marriage, as she believed that he was rich and could offer her and her daughter a very comfortable life. Her parents, however, were not happy with her decision to marry John. They actually declined their invitations to the wedding.
Ouch.
Burn.
Mm.
Excuse me. I can't hold it in.
Yeah, no, better out than in. Hey.
That's Shrek. Better out than in.
That's due for a rewatch.
Yeah.
We gotta have a Shrek party one time. I mean, everybody else is doing it on TikTok and whatnot.
We gonna have a Shrek night?
Yeah.
We're gonna get Shreked. That's going in the podcast.
Oh my god.
I'm keeping that.
Yes.
Evelyn and John were married on October 4th, 1945 at the Church of the Ascension. It sounds culty, I know, but that is where they decided to get married. So as for the wedding took place on October 4th, 1945. After Evelyn's marriage to John, they did not live together right away, as Evelyn told John that her apartment wasn't big enough to house another person. This frustrated John, as he really wanted to have a normal family life and live with his wife, obviously, and his new daughter. So a month later, the couple purchased a house on Carrick Avenue, and strangely enough, Evelyn's name was the only name found on the deed to the house and attached with the mortgage. She was also the only one who paid the deposit. In the end, John and Evelyn didn't live together for long, as she realized that the man she had married was not as wealthy as she had thought. She didn't believe anymore that he could give her the lifestyle she wanted, so she quickly went back to her old ways of going out and trying to meet men while she was still married. In fact, Evelyn and John were only married for 5 days before Evelyn committed adultery. Like, she probably sat there for the first 3 and was like, okay, I'll wait it out. I'll see if he wins the lottery. And then day 5 hit and she was like, fuck this. And she got up and she was like, all right, I'm done.
Oh my god.
Her relationship with John had started to deteriorate. John had eventually decided to move out of the house and go live with his cousin, Alexander Kammerer. Even though he didn't want to give up on their marriage, he decided to go and speak to Evelyn's father about her behavior. Donald didn't want to be involved, as he didn't care for John and thought that Evelyn could do much better. John then threatened to turn Donald into the authorities if he didn't help him get back together with Evelyn, as he suspected that Donald had been stealing money from his employer for years. Donald became enraged at the thought of this and threatened to kill John. John took the threat seriously and reported it to the police, but I couldn't find online if anything actually came out of whether or not the police got involved. So that's
dead end there. Yeah.
After trying for a long period of time to salvage his marriage with Evelyn, John was not successful and his marriage had failed. Okay, we're going to jump ahead a bit. So on Saturday, March 16th, 1946, 5 children were playing outside at the Niagara Escarpment, what the locals called the mountain, in Hamilton, Ontario. So it's this like big kind of mountain that the kids would play on. It's like a giant hill, essentially. When they stumbled across what they thought initially was the body of a headless pig. As they moved closer, they realized that what they were looking at was actually the torso of an adult male. The head, arms, and legs were nowhere in sight, but a deep wound in the abdomen told investigators that someone had tried to cut the torso itself into 2.
Yikes.
Which is so gross because, like, imagine being those 5 kids, you know, like just playing on the hill, playing kick the can or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what's this? And you stumble over and, like, little Timothy, like, pokes it with a stick
Yeah.
or whatever and is like, that looks like my dad's tummy or some shit like that, you know? Like, so gross.
Oh, so gnarly. Start playing with the intestines and whatnot.
Just swirl it around, you know?
Ooh.
So the police were called to the scene and an investigation ensued. Soon after the torso had been discovered, Alexander came forward and reported that he had not seen John since March 6th. He explained to the police how John's relationship with Evelyn had failed and that John had moved in with him for the time being and without a word disappeared. Alexander was then shown the remains of the torso and was able to make a positive identification, confirming that the torso was in fact John's. So, okay, one question I have is like, how on earth did this cousin know what John's torso looked like?
Right? Unless he like watched him in the shower and he's like, oh, nice birthmark.
Hey, cuz, you doing okay in there? Yeah, it kind of, that was one question where I'm like, okay, so he knows that his cousin was missing, but how does he know that this torso belongs to him?
Totally. Right? Like, I'm trying to like picture my cousins. I'm like I don't know what they look like nude at all. Like, if I were to like, because of course some of them have tattoos, right? Then I'd be like, right. Oh yeah, them. But yeah, no, that's a bit weird. Just
yeah.
Like, I don't know. I of course don't want to jump too ahead, but I'm like, I wonder if the cousin had a little something to do with that. I was like, oh yeah, that's my dead cousin John. Maybe perhaps, yeah.
Did you know that it was his torso because you killed him? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's so weird to me.
So weird.
On March 19th, 1946, Evelyn Dick was summoned upon by police for questioning for the disappearance and murder of her husband, John Dick. When police told Evelyn that the torso they found had belonged to her husband, she said abruptly, "Don't look at me. I had nothing to do with it." In her statement, Evelyn said that a well-dressed Italian man, so a mafia man, so to speak, came to her house asking for the whereabouts of John. She also said that the man who visited her said that John had been seeing the man's wife and that he was going to fix him. So, like, rough him up, essentially.
Right. But, like, when she says, I had nothing to do with it, that's always a telltale sign that you're guilty in one way or another.
Well,
because, like...
Yeah, and she didn't show, like, any sadness. Like, there was nothing indicating that she was upset over the fact that her husband had died, right?
Another huge telltale sign, yeah.
She's just like, well, don't look at me. I didn't do it. And it's like, wait, did you not hear me? Your husband is dead. She's
right.
Like, I know. Like... Who cares? Essentially, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
What's new?
Tell me something I don't know. The police didn't have any evidence supporting the statement that she gave and didn't believe what she told them. They soon discovered that Evelyn had borrowed a huge Packard car from a man named Bill Bahozuk, who was one of her friends. And I didn't know what a Packard car was, so I looked it up. And it was a brand of vehicle at the time, but they are no longer being made. When she returned the car to Bill, the seat covers were missing and there were bloodstains on the front seats and a set of blood-stained clothes in the back of the car. Evelyn had left a written note saying that the reason the car was in such an awful state was because her daughter, Heather, had cut herself while traveling as a passenger in the vehicle. Like, what is your kid gonna cut themselves on? Makes no sense.
Mm-mm.
Police investigators, however, proved that the blood was the same blood type as John's was. When confronted with this evidence, Evelyn had changed her story and told police that a mysterious man had called her and told her that John had gotten a woman pregnant and that he was getting what was coming to him, rather than having the man show up at her door. According to Evelyn, the man demanded that she meet up with him, so she drove to the meeting point. She said that the man had a large sack with him that he was carrying, and that he told her it contained parts of John. So, like, other body parts of him.
Hmm.
Evelyn's story went on to say that she drove this man to a place that was close to where the torso was initially found, so he could dump the rest of the body parts there. Police considered this to be extremely unlikely. Police then asked her if she was concerned that her husband had been killed. She responded by telling police that she was not happy, but that it was a pretty mean trick to break up a home. The police had taken this statement without Evelyn's lawyer being present.
Sorry, a mean trick. A mean
Yeah.
trick. Oh, somebody's like murder is such a mean trick.
It's a pretty rude prank. Like, fuck off. I hate this bitch. Oh my god. I don't even know why I picked this story. I just hate her. Well, I picked it because it's interesting, but I fucking hate her. The police had taken this statement without Evelyn's lawyer being present. When her lawyer, John Sullivan, arrived, he reminded police that the statement was inadmissible in court. The next time she was interviewed, she changed her story again for a third time. This time, she had claimed that her friend Bill Bahozek and some of his associates had taken John to the mountain and killed him. When the detectives told Evelyn that this story was different from the story they had obtained from Bill, she changed her story again for yet a fourth time. This woman, she's probably only been talking to the cops for a short amount of time. She's changed her story 4 times already.
Bish! If that's not sus enough.
Obviously, they're, pointing fingers.
Mhm.
Already. The police searched Evelyn's old family home that belonged to her father and found a pipe with bullet holes in it, a revolver with cartridges, saws, and a pair of blood-stained shoes that had belonged to John that were found in the basement. In the yard behind her home, bits of human bones mixed with cinders from the furnace had also been found. Investigators also made another very gruesome discovery: a beige suitcase in the attic. The suitcase that was found appeared to be filled with concrete, and within that concrete were the remains of a baby boy, the baby boy Peter that she had given birth to in 1944 and supposedly put up for adoption.
No.
So not only is this woman's husband, missing and murdered, but her infant son that she apparently gave up for adoption was in a suitcase in between cement
That's so
and
gross.
killed
Ugh.
that way. How horrible is that?
Like was it like official autopsy? Autopsy. The
Autopsy.
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 Eh.
that's what the Italians call an autopsy. Autopsy.
Autopsy. So was that not okay, now I forgot my question. Okay, but sorry, during the autopsy or whatever, the results from that, did that say that was the cause of death just by suffocation due to the
suffocation
concrete?
due to the cement, essentially.
No, that's
yeah.
Oh no, that's like being mummified alive in a way, but I mean
Yeah.
mummies take out your brains and stuff through your nostrils, but
yeah,
no, excluding that, but still
smothered to death by thick cement. Yeah.
God. Ugh.
Yeah.
I just hope he
awful.
was napping when that was happening or some shit.
Yeah, I know. I just can't even imagine. The evidence was stacked against Evelyn at this point, and the more evidence that was gathered, she always changed her story. The police decided to charge Evelyn Dick, Bill Bahozek, and Donald McLean with the murder of John Dick. As for the trial, it was decided that Evelyn would be tried separately from Bill and Donald. Her trial began October 7th, 1946. Even though there was no actual evidence that proved that she was guilty of the crime of murdering John Dick, there was substantial evidence to show that she had participated in the criminal action and helped to plan the attempt. The trial had lasted for 9 days and only took the jury 2 hours to decipher a verdict.
Mhm.
After the trial, Evelyn was found guilty for the murder of her husband, John Dick. She was sentenced to be hanged on January 7th, 1947. The trial of Bill Bohosic and Donald McLean was delayed for a long period of time. Due to the legal disputes, when it eventually took place, Evelyn refused to testify. This greatly damaged the prosecution's case. Bill was found not guilty, but her father, Donald, was found to be an accessory. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison, which to me, 5 years is like not a long time.
No. Especially if you're like fucking cutting a body apart. Like, you can't be
Yeah.
right. You can't be right in the head if you're gonna be
Yeah.
doing that.
What is it, like a year for every body part? Terrible.
Terrible.
Evelyn decided to appeal her sentence and got herself a new lawyer, a man by the name of J.J. Robinette. Her second trial opened on February 24th, 1947. This time, her lawyer successfully argued her case, and the original verdict was overturned because it was ruled that Evelyn's statement to the police was improperly admitted into evidence and that the trial judge had not properly instructed the jury. She was, however, found guilty of manslaughter for the case of her son, Peter David White.
Manslaughter. Okay, that's what really gets me mad.
Yeah.
Manslaughter for killing your own child. Okay, like there have been cases, like especially it was known in Canada for women who just like go crazy because they're suffering postpartum depression. Their kid won't stop crying, like, and then they
Right.
don't know what else to do. They snap, they kill their kid, regret it, of course, like right away. And
Yeah.
then like they're not really sentenced as guilty. It is manslaughter, I believe. But like in this case, she just sounds like a nutcase. So girl, like manslaughter. And then also just because I think of like the era it was in, it's like, oh, a woman could not be capable of such evil kind of thing, you know?
Right. Yeah. No, I think because there were 2 people that were close to her that, wound up dead.
Mhm.
I think manslaughter, like for her to be charged with that is just a joke.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Ugh.
She was sentenced to life in Kingston Penitentiary. With that, Evelyn's psychiatrist proved that Evelyn had been found to be on the borderline between what was called dull normal and moron-like intelligence, which, we would not use those terms today.
Yeah, not nowadays.
No. In addition, it was reported that she had the mental capacity of a 13-year-old girl. And I believe she was 26 at the time her husband John died. So a 13-year-old killed him, essentially. Allegedly. 11 years later, Evelyn was granted parole after some friends in high places had arranged her release. She was released from prison on parole on November 10th, 1958. Eventually, Evelyn was granted a pardon under the royal prerogative of mercy, which meant that she no longer had to report to police or the parole board, and that her file would be sealed forever. It is not known as to what happened to Evelyn after she was released from prison. Some say that Evelyn was given a new identity, remained in Canada, got married to a new man, and had another daughter. Although people are not certain about this theory, one thing is for certain, and that is that no one was ever convicted for the brutal murder of John Dick.
Well,
Ta-da!
dang, no justice for John Dick. Not really.
No, none.
Ugh, that's
Yeah,
a shame.
her father got 5 years for, being an accessory,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not enough.
No, definitely not. No,
Yeah.
no, yeah, 5 years is nothing. It just, like, the justice system has still a long ways to go. And really, from like, if you use that case and put it to like nowadays standards, I almost guarantee that it would almost come out to the same result. I mean, depending maybe on like where you lived, but
Yeah,
like,
I think it's dependent on where, for sure.
yeah, for sure. But like, yeah, if you heard that case too nowadays, yeah, you'd still think like, wow, that's fucked up. But like, that's still like not that uncommon, unfortunately, like with those results.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she was originally sentenced to life in prison, and then she only spent 11 years there, and then was like, "Okay, I'm out."
Yeah.
Like, how does that work?
Mm-hmm.
Because of friends in high places, like what, like that to me is, I couldn't find a lot of detail on that either, but that to me is just like friends with money who tipped off whoever, and they were
Mhm.
like, "Okay, get her out."
Yeah, money
And
makes the
then-
world go round.
And I'm really curious as to like what happened to her after she got out of prison. Like, did she start a new life? Was she killed? Did someone come after her, or did she just die of like whatever? It's hard to tell.
Yeah, who
So-
knows? Oh,
So yeah.
but hey, if you're
Good
out
story.
there, we know what you did. Damn it, Evelyn. All right, so I guess we'll be moving on to the story I have prepared for today. This is a
Yay, I'm
case.
excited.
Yeah, that takes place in Washington State.
Oh,
The
cool.
victims, though, are from the high school I actually graduated from. But this takes place in 1987, so we have not crossed paths. No, I was not even born yet. So,
Yeah.
so this case involves Tanya Van Cuylenborg and Jay Cook. They are the victims in this case. And so, unfortunately,
Play the movie. Y'all. Play. Those are my favorite. Play the podcast. Y'all. Play.
So this case takes place in 1987, involving two recently graduated students from Oak Bay High School. I have graduated there, so I decided to cover the story partially for that reason, but also because there's just a lot of weird stuff that goes down in Victoria, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful place. Yeah, I love it here. And absolutely beautiful. The nature, just the people I find are great as well, for the most part. Just like really weird stuff goes down, and like I don't think people talk about it enough. And also, Victoria is like one of the most haunted places in North America, so we're definitely going to get into some spooky stuff about that.
Oh, heck yeah.
So this case is about a young couple from Victoria, BC, who graduated from Oak Bay High. On November 18th, 1987, 18-year-old Tanya Van Cuylenborg and her 20-year-old boyfriend, Jay Cook, decided to take an overnight trip to Seattle, Washington, and they never returned home. Tanya's parents, Bill and Jean, reported the couple missing on November 20th, the day after they were expected to return home. On November 24th, Tanya's body was found in a ditch in a wooded area of Parsons Creek Road in Skagit County, 20 kilometers south of Bellingham. 150 kilometers away from Tanya, Jay's body was found under a bridge near Crescent Lake Road, east of Monroe, on November 26th. This case was cold for about 30 years until recently in 2018, where the murderer of these victims is the first ever to be convicted using genealogy research.
Wow.
And that is something I find quite interesting too about this case, and just how technology is changing and how we're going to catch all these creeps,
Definitely.
So Tanya and Jay started dating in the summer of 1987. Tanya enjoyed sailing trips with her family and playing tennis with her brother in the court of their backyard. She cared for many pets, her cats, fish, gerbils, and her beloved golden retriever. She dreamed of working with animals, perhaps as a veterinarian, and she also considered photography. Tanya was anticipating a trip to Holland in the summer and was looking forward to exploring outside of Vancouver Island. Jay worked on a fishing boat and in a pizza restaurant. He picked up the bass guitar and loved boating with his family as well. He was described as someone with no rough edges, but he had a bizarre habit of losing his clothes. So sometimes after school, he'd come home without his jacket and had no idea where it would end up. Like what a quirky
kids.
guy. Yeah, I guess so. And one day the family packed for a ski trip, about a 4-hour drive. And once they got there with, snow on the ground, Jay only had one shoe.
Oh my gosh.
He also had a sweetness about him, taking his younger sister out for dinner and once for high tea. And one of his sisters said, "It's really no wonder that Jay ended up with someone like Tanya. Tanya was very sweet and caring, and they looked up to each other." And one day, Jay's father asked Jay to run an overnight errand on November 18th to Seattle to pick up $750 worth of parts from Gensco for his furnace business. Tanya was invited along for the trip. Jay's father lent them the bronze 1977 Ford Club wagon van. It was planned that they take 2 ferries over, spend the night parked in the parking lot outside the business, and then return home the next day. Unfortunately, the details of exactly what happened that night were never fully confirmed. So their ferry had docked in Port Angeles around 4 p.m. Perhaps an hour later on Highway 101, they missed the exit to Hood Canal Bridge. So they stopped in Hood Sport for snacks, and the store clerk was asked how close they were to the bridge, as they had taken the wrong turn.
Okay.
She told them to reroute to Seattle. And then later at another shop, a deli clerk spoke with them in a Lynn, and she claimed that they did not seem distressed and it didn't seem like anyone else was traveling with them. And this is where the couple was last seen alive at 9:30 p.m. The next day, Tanya's ID, a box of .380 caliber ammo, and gloves are found under the porch of a bar in Bellingham, Washington. Around the corner sat the abandoned van near a Greyhound station. Days later, police found a ticket for the Bremerton-Seattle ferry in the van. They found the ferry tickets to Seattle at the Bremerton Ferry dock at 10:16 p.m. The ferry had docked in Seattle around 11:35 p.m., and that's where the couple's path went cold. So, yeah, last seen at 9:30 p.m., and the last they could really track as to where they were was 11:35 p.m., where they docked in Seattle.
Right.
So on November 20th, Tanya's parents, Bill and Jean, were concerned that they hadn't arrived home yet, since this was totally out of the ordinary for their behavior. So they called the police to file a missing persons report. 4 days later, on November 24th, Tanya's body was found nude from the waist down in a ditch in a wooded area of Parsons Creek Road in Skagit County, 20 kilometers south of Bellingham. She had been restrained with zip ties, sexually assaulted, and shot in the back of the head execution style, 2 inches away from the back of her head with a .380 caliber gun.
Man, I fucking hate zip ties.
Yeah, girl.
I hate hearing all these stories about men carrying around zip ties and
Ugh.
shit
Yeah,
like
and
that.
and the zip ties with the car handles and stuff too.
Yeah, with the teeth.
Oh shit, yeah. Ugh.
Yeah,
Awful.
that's brutal.
Zip ties, illegalize them, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. Jay's body was found 2 days later, 150 kilometers away from Tanya. A pheasant hunter's dog uncovered his body under a blue blanket in tall grass under a bridge of Snoqualmie River near Crescent Lake Road east of Monroe. Jay was restrained with zip ties, and tissue and a pack of Camel Lights were shoved down his throat. He'd been beaten with rocks and strangled with twine tied into 2 dog collars. It is believed that it was possible he didn't die that night, but days later. At all 3 crime scenes, zip ties were found, and the 3rd crime scene being the van. Disposable gloves were also scattered near the bodies in plain view, having the police believe that this was an attempt to taunt them. Semen was found on Tanya's body and her pants, which were left in the van, as well as the van's mattress. The money order for the furnace parts was left untouched, but a bag with a camera inside had been taken from the van. So the police suppose that the couple may have offered to give a lift to a stranger they had met on the last ferry. Jay Cook's mother, Lee, believes that her son pulled over to help a stranger on a cold night because that's the kind of person he was. And this stranger just so happened to be a very sick individual. For 30 years, the Cook and Van Cuylenborg families have been left without knowing who had done this to Tanya and Jay. Jay's family stated that they believed that the killer had been put in jail possibly for some other similar crime, but that was not the case. Jump forward around 30 years later, the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office released 3 images of what the killer might have looked like at the age of 25, 45, and 65 based on his DNA. The technology called snapshot DNA phenotyping can determine a person's eyes, skin and hair color, facial features, and ancestry. Detective Sharp contacted Parabon Nanotech on April 20th, 420, on 2018 with a request. CC Moore used her skills to track down the perpetrator through genealogy research, internet detective skills, and the DNA on file. Coincidentally, the second cousins of the perp had voluntarily uploaded their DNA to a genealogy website, one being GED Match, whose terms of service state that the information can be provided to law enforcement for sexual assault and murder cases. So just with that, they were able to find the suspect by navigating the family tree and the perp's DNA as well as his relatives. While investigating this case, it had actually led to another case, being that of the Golden State Killer. However, this is the first case ever to convict someone in court using genealogy research. We're making progress. The man who matched the DNA is William Earl Talbot II, a 55-year-old trucker working for SeaTac. Police had been following him for days on his routes, waiting for Bill to drop something that could be used to compare his DNA. Finally, a cup dropped from Talbot's truck. The DNA from the cup matched the samples from the crime scene perfectly. In May 2018, Talbot was arrested for the murder of Tanya Van Cuylenborg and later charged in June for the murder of Jay Cook. On the day of his arrest, the state allowed 2 possible sentences for aggravated first-degree murder. life in prison or death. As Talbot awaited trial, the state Supreme Court effectively abolished the death penalty in October because it was considered unconstitutional. Talbot said he couldn't comprehend the level of violence in this case and that he had gone through his whole life as a very passive person and he never raised a hand to anyone. What a saint. Several of Talbot's friends could not believe that he was being convicted of these crimes. They wrote letters in July 2018 asking a judge to reduce his bail. This was not the Bill that they knew. In the time that I have known Bill, he has always been a loyal, caring, loving, and an unselfish person, one friend wrote. And another wrote,
okay, sorry, that pisses me off so much. How these idiot friends of his, were like, this isn't the guy that I know. Too bad. Evidence points to the fact that he is a brutal rapist and killer.
Yeah, totally. Like, how long have you known this guy, huh?
Yeah, and just because, you claim that you're friends with him doesn't mean you know everything about him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just like defending that, like, especially when it comes to DNA, it's not like hearsay or something, So another person wrote, I still do not believe this man could have done this terrible crime or even participated in any way. And then another person wrote, Bill is a very respectful man and he has a heart of gold. Yeah, no, Bill, going down. At the time of the murders, Bill was about 24 years old and still living at his family home roughly 11 kilometers away from where Jay's body was found. Bill argued that he did not rape Tanya and that it was consensual, and that he did not murder Tanya or Jay, and said that someone else had done it once he left.
As if.
Yeah, please. Prosecution argued that it would be incredibly unlikely for that scenario to be true. It was the 80s in the middle of an AIDS crisis, and she was 18 years old, traveling with her boyfriend, and she was on her period, and Talbot was a complete stranger to them, not to mention how her body was exposed when she was found. A few statements were omitted during the trial, since it can be considered irrelevant or hearsay, but online doing the research, it was hard to determine what was admissible and what wasn't. It was all kind of jumbled. I used mainly like newspaper websites for this.
Yeah.
That's mainly what covered this.
Okay.
Anyways, a former roommate mentioned they remember seeing the bronze van parked outside Talbot's home in November that year, and one friend claimed that they went fishing near where Jay's body was found before the time of the murders. Another friend mentioned his interest in cameras, and a camera was stolen from the van, but the money order was left untouched. I just find that weird. But I don't know, maybe just because he didn't want his name connected to the crime, because like if there is a suspicious money order, like you will call the police. So, however, the statements given by Bill's father and two sisters to police on the day of their arrest shed light on his true character. The youngest sister, Melina, claimed that he had a lot of anger issues and that he once kicked her on the ground with boots on, leading to calling the police. She said that she remembered a pushing incident between her father, who was disabled from a motorcycle accident, and Bill was around 11 at the time. Melina said it seemed like he felt like life owed him something. Entitled
Life
Little Twat.
doesn't owe you shit, motherfucker.
The mother got the family to attend counseling, but that didn't help. Bill Sr., the father, mentioned when Talbot was 16, he threatened to run him over with a car once he got his license. And of course, the dad was just like, well, you're on your own getting your license then. Not contributing to my own murder.
I'm not a fan of people running people over, especially when it's my own.
Yeah, no. Inga, the eldest daughter and 2 years younger than Talbot, said that when she was around 15, her brother beat her up so bad that he broke her tailbone and she had to go to the hospital.
Oh my God.
That hurts a lot, and also it takes many years to heal the tailbone, in case many all knew that.
Yeah, I bruised my tailbone playing like touch rugby when I was in middle school.
From touch rugby alone?
Yeah, some asshole in my class tackled me, and it was touch rugby, like fuck off. And I bruised my tailbone, and I had to sit on one of those rubber tubes for like 2 weeks.
You poor thing.
I couldn't even go to school. It was so terrible.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, it was brutal.
I got it. I had my tailbone apparently chipped. Yeah, that was in grade 2. I was sitting on like a metal bar, and right below that metal bar was another metal bar, and like you could shake it as well. So this one kid decided to shake it while I was sitting on there, and like I fell backwards, but my legs were still like hooked on around my knees, right? So like when I fell back, the lower bar hit my tailbone, And anyways, it hurt for about 10 years until it started healing up.
Yeah, that's like insane.
Yeah, until like, yeah. Anyways, just be nice to your fellow tailbones out there, you know?
Be nice to your fellow tailboners, okay?
Yes. We're 12.
We are.
Yes. She also mentioned that when she was around 11 years old, she had also been sexually assaulted by her brother. His violence also affected the family cat, Nikki, who he dropped down the well.
No.
What did the cat ever do to you, man?
Hey, people that abuse animals and like children are the worst kind of people.
Absolutely.
The absolute worst kind of people in my mind. Because they cannot defend themselves.
These people, they're cowards. Death to them all. If I got to rule.
Yeah, if Rachel had her way.
Yes, execution. He had been estranged from the family for about 20 years up until his arrest. So yeah, denying like going to weddings and all that. He just had no interest in keeping in contact, although his family did try to still keep him involved. They were like, or he was like, nah.
He didn't want anything to do with them.
No, they saw all of his ugliness, so I guess, yeah, he just didn't want anybody else to know about it, you know, the more involved. Anyways, 2 years before the murders, in 1985, Bill had been convicted of a misdemeanor assault. He was required to seek anger management counseling, and he skipped court dates in 1986, alongside testimonies from Talbot's former roommates and police interviews with his family that recounted past incidences of violence. And of course, with a good jury, Talbot was sentenced to life without parole in July 2019. He is serving 2 life sentences and is currently trying to appeal his conviction, still denying his crimes.
What an asshole.
Yeah, seriously. And like,
what was his name again?
Oh, Bill Talbot II.
Okay, I love that his name is
the second.
Whatever, the second.
Right?
It makes him sound fancy, but he's a fucking rapist and murderer.
Absolutely. I thought that was quite ironic because, of course, like, if you're naming someone after yourself, it's definitely has to do with like your pride and whatnot. Well, he just totally tarnished the name. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I hate my dad and that he gave me his name. Oh.
Well, he definitely, definitely made a path for himself. But hey,
shit.
Believe it or not, yeah, like I mentioned before too, that the death penalty was only like abolished, what, 2 years ago now? Not even.
Yeah.
That's so bizarre to me that it's still out there, but I'm not saying that it's totally outdated. It's complicated. I think another time we'll talk about the death penalty because I have quite a few thoughts on that.
Oh, same. I think it, just to kind of touch base on that, I think it definitely depends on the crime. And I know it shouldn't depend on the crime, but for me it does.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also the evidence as well.
Yeah,
as long as you have the evidence to match up with the crime, then all right, you're good to go.
I think you did this, but I have no evidence. You are sentenced to die.
That's
not how shit works.
No, like, oh, speaking of that though, like the Green Mile, like you've seen the Green Mile, right?
I actually don't think I have.
Walking the Green Mile. It's so sad. It's so sad because well, it's not much of a spoiler, but in that movie, like, this big gentle giant is convicted of killing and raping these 2 like young girls, but he didn't do it. Like, he's actually more of like an empath. I don't want to give too much away.
Right. Okay.
And anyways, like, all the guards and stuff, they know that he's not guilty, and they had like no choice but to kind of go along with him being convicted for that. Really sad. It was actually a book written by Stephen King. And I was kind of surprised because it was a little bit different from the rest of his books. So I mean, I hadn't read it, I just watched the movie, but anyways, really good movie. Check that out when you do have the time. But yeah, so that's that story. But I just wish that we got all the gaps kind of filled in as well, because like, he's still in denial and we don't know exactly what took place where and like how he managed to like sneak in the van or, you know, whatever he did to convince them, or if he like held them up.
I think it's so weird that sorry, what was his name? Jay Cook?
Yeah, Jay Cook.
Yeah, that he was wrapped it or had a blanket over him.
Oh
Because
yeah.
it's like, it's just so weird to me, like how, sorry, I can't remember her name.
Oh, Tanya. Yeah.
Tanya, yeah. How she was out in the open and how Jay was covered. That to me is almost like a shame thing. Where he
Totally.
was shameful of, murdering this this kid, this boy, but he has no shame when it came to Tanya.
Totally. And like
that's so strange.
it is really strange. Yeah, that's actually a good point because honestly, I didn't think about that right away. What I was thinking about was like how he killed them like very differently. Like he killed her execution style, like
the methods
just
were so
done.
different.
Yeah. And then with Jay, like it sounds like he really struggled towards the end of his death, like because they don't really know exactly when he did die, but he was left there for quite some time. So, but yeah, no, he was like beaten with rocks and strangled and like
the cigarettes down the throat thing
that too.
So disturbing.
Right. Yeah. And that was something that wasn't just publicly like out there everywhere. There was only a couple of sites that would mention that. To get all like
and probably for good reason too, like for protection of the family, because imagine, reading these articles about your son that had been murdered and hearing, obviously they had to hear the details, but seeing that and having that be known to the public is so harsh and so heartbreaking.
Yeah. Oh, it's so terrible, like especially after them not knowing for 30 years, not having closure for 30 years. They thought they'd never get it.
Oh yeah.
But I just hope that they have like enough closure kind of now and that they can kind of have like peace with it. But still, like, the guy is still in denial, and like to me that would drive me crazy if somebody I knew died
like,
because of him. Seriously.
No.
Yeah, it's like you're behind bars now. Yeah. Gosh.
Well, he sounds like a fucking loser anyways, so
yeah, no, I don't think he will be ever let out, so he better not be, since he is trying to appeal the case, so
he can suck shit.
That's right.
Wow, that was heavy.
Yeah, that was heavy.
Like the older ones, like the one that I did, it's heavy shit, but it was so long ago that it just feels more like a tale than it does an actual event that conspired. And with it being so recent, that just weighs on you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like
it takes a whole other toll.
Totally. And like that's another thing, like in true crime, it is very important to like actually like realize, okay, these were real people, this actually did happen, and we're trying to like humanize everything, but when it comes to the perpetrator, I don't feel much sympathy for as to like why they committed their crimes. How can you? I mean, sure, like if a lot of the cases they had a really poor upbringing, or they were like abused or something, but then that, of course, that does not excuse.
No, because there are so many other people in life who, have terrible experiences with being raised and being brought up, and they do not go on to murder other individuals. They get over their shit. They seek therapy. They get help, So no, it's not an excuse.
Oh, sorry. Oh yeah, go on. Sorry, I'm gonna.
No. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That actually kind of reminded me of something, and not to sound sexist, really in any way, but like when a woman has something wrong with her, oh, I need to get this fixed. I need to go to the doctor. It's urgent. It's my body. When it comes to men, they're like, no, I'll be fine. I don't want to go to the doctor. And especially when it comes to, totally. But then also, like, I know there's a lot of stigma too. And just in today's society, I think it's getting a bit better now where, men can't show emotion. They, can't admit to their feelings and weaknesses and stuff. And of course, that's just totally like messed up.
Bullshit.
Total bullshit. And
whoever
like,
came up with that was an idiot.
Oh, totally. And not only that, probably like a sociopath or a psychopath. And that's kind of what I feel like social media is kind of wants us to be. Like remove the emotion, just try to strive in being like the perfect human robot, in my opinion.
Only show the good parts.
Cool. Yeah,
I think the whole men's mental health component is super important, and luckily I think men are starting to open up a little bit more, which is great, because you know, it can be so hard. Well, like for women, just as hard, but there's definitely that stigma around mental health with men. So hopefully, you know, society's trying to kind of push that to the side, and, you know, hopefully we can get there one day where men feel comfortable enough to open up to others and, you know, share how they feel and understand that their mental health is important. And
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's very interesting how, I don't know, society and like the law and everything treats us, and it's not always humane. And anyways, like,
yeah, that's a deep dive.
That's a deep, very deep dive. This is where I get a little depresso. So that's right. So yeah, we won't go down that sad little swirl today. So
yeah, save it for another day.
Yeah, save it for another gloomy day. Yes, let's take a little walk into the gratitude lounge and take a nice cozy seat.
Yeah, no, today I think my little bit of gratitude, well, I have lots of gratitude, but you know, I I had a very unproductive day today. I woke up, I showered, I had breakfast, and then I pretty much just like crawled back into bed with my cat, and we had like the best cat nap literally together. And that was just like it was the perfect reset that I needed. So I'm very, very grateful for my cat, and, you know, he brings me so much peace and love, and yeah, it was great.
Aw,
about
that's
you?
nice. Well, I'm grateful that you have a cat. I'm grateful about that. That's so nice. But yeah, no, today was a really nice chill day. Yeah, I got to go walk to the beach, and I'm just so grateful for the ocean. Like, usually when I write down like a list of what I'm grateful for, the ocean will be in there.
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
can't
definitely.
imagine to like live away from the ocean again. It just brings me so much peace, and I just feel so refreshed after leaving there too, and that was really nice. But
Yeah, it's such
yeah,
a
it
game
was.
changer. Hey.
Oh, it really is. Yeah, like you said, like a reset. It was. So yeah, that was really nice. I really enjoyed the day, and it was just like really chill and gloomy. And then like I watched some more true crime stuff when I got back.
Yeah,
So it was an all around great day.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's a really good gratitude lounge segment. Speaking of lounges, we have something called the visitors lounge. So if you know, want to share any of your creepy stories that you have, whether it be true crime, aliens, ghosts, Sasquatch, you name it, email us at thebonediariespodcast@gmail.com, and one of your stories might be featured on our show.
Or if you got any like good bone jokes, just that would be great.
We always love bone jokes.
Yes, that's right.
Which, you know, hey, I don't know if we talked about this, but the name of our podcast and how it came to be.
Yeah.
I was sitting on the toilet one day, and I was thinking about names, and I was thinking about, you know, murder and true crime and whatever, and
Naturally.
yeah, naturally. And graveyards came into my head, and I was like, all right, well, you know, what is associated with a graveyard? And I thought of the word, the like bones or boneyard or whatever, and I was like, oh, that's funny. And and then I realized, you know, stories, a diary, whatnot. And then I was like, oh my God, the Bone Diaries, that could even cover dating stories.
Yeah.
The Bone
Horrific
Diaries.
dating stories. Yes.
Oh my God. It just fits perfectly, you know. I think it really suits us and our mission here.
Oh, absolutely. It does. It does. Because, yeah, especially, I don't know what like kind of demographic we're attracting, but I'm assuming similar folks to like you and me, right? So,
I'm hoping so.
yeah, I'm hoping so too. So, probably folks in like, yeah, the 20s, you know, trying to date in today's like landfill.
Yeah. Oh my
So,
God.
especially with social media being involved now, it just,
Ugh, it's awful.
yeah, really brings out the coffin flies.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
That sounds so mean, but like once you actually experience it, like you'll know that I'm being polite.
Oh yeah. Yeah, big time. No, I think that is the nicest way you can put it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
I feel you on that.
And we want to give a huge shout out today to our incredible dads who wrote our podcast intro for us, which is pretty exciting. So thanks, Andrew and Gary. You guys are the
Yeah.
best.
Thank you, Papas.
We love you.
Thanks, guys, for listening today. And if you like this episode, fellow boners, I'm not going to call you guys that. No, I'm
you
changing
call
my
them
mind.
boneheads.
Boneheads. We're not calling you boners. That'll be for the haters.
Yeah, that's right.
Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. And remember, beware the boneyard. Catch you later.